Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. The subway is always a kind of underworld, and tonight, on Christmas night, it feels like a tunnel between two worlds. Tonight, the rabbit hole is not lined with stone and soil, but with tile, advertisements, and the low hum of electricity running through steel veins. The 7 train rumbles east to west, pulling me into Manhattan from Flushing, carrying a caravan of the weary, the festive, and the restless. The seats shine faintly under fluorescent light, cracked plastic polished by years of passengers shifting with every sway of the car. Above us, the air smells faintly of old newspapers, winter coats still carrying snowflakes, and the metallic tang of rails sparking beneath. Across from me sits a woman in a heavy coat, her lap piled with shopping bags, their paper sides creased, one handle about to tear. The bright red lettering of Macy's stretches across the bag, like a reminder of traditions, both commercial and personal. Her eyes are tired, but every so often she adjusts one of the packages as though making sure that yes, the gifts are still there, still safe, still meant for someone waiting at home. Next to her, a child clutches a stuffed Santa almost as big as his torso. Its beard is already grimy from being dragged across seats and platforms, but the boy holds it tightly, his nose pressed against its fur. He hums quietly, a song only he and the toy share, and his mother strokes his hair absent-mindedly, her mind already in the warmth of wherever they're going. 2 seats down, a young couple leans close together, whispering. Their breath fogs slightly in the cold draft that snakes through the car whenever the doors hiss open at each stop. They smile at each other like conspirators, speaking of dinners, of parents, of the courage it takes to blend families on nights like this. The train slows at Elmhurst Avenue, brakes squealing, doors parting. A man enters with a saxophone case slung over his back. He looks ordinary enough. Worn coat, knit cap pulled low, eyes scanning for a seat. He settles near the middle of the car and says nothing, simply riding with us for a few stops. And then, as if prompted by some unseen conductor, he unlatches the case. The click of the metal clasps is small, but in the silence of a subway car, it's sharp enough to draw eyes. The man lifts out a brass saxophone, the bell dulled by fingerprints, but gleaming faintly under fluorescent light. He lowers the reed to his lips, inhales, and the first notes spill out. It isn't noise. It isn't busking. It's music, smooth, warm, alive. He plays a line of "Have yourself a merry little Christmas," the melody bending and sliding as if it has been waiting for this tunnel to release it. Passengers look up, surprised, then soften. The tired woman with her shopping bags taps her fingers on her thigh. The boy with the stuffed Santa widens his eyes, transfixed. Even the couple pauses in their whispers, their smiles spreading as the sound fills the car. The saxophone man continues, rolling into silent night, but not silent at all. He plays it with a gentle swing, a rhythm that makes feet tap and heads nod. For a moment, the subway is transformed. Not just a machine moving bodies under the city, but a rolling choir loft. Voices join in quietly. A baritone from one corner, a soprano hum from another, the faintest thread of harmony weaving through the electric rumble. By the time the train screeches into Grand Central and the tunnels bend westward, the car is alive. People are swaying slightly, nodding, smiling at strangers. The saxophonist's cheeks puff, his shoulders rock, and every note bounces off tile walls and lingers in the stale air like incense. It feels like church and club, train and temple all at once. And then, just before 42nd Street, he ends. A long, sweet, final note hangs in the air, trembling. He lowers the saxophone, bows his head, and snaps the case shut. No hat is passed. No hand is extended. The gift was enough. He leaves at the same station I do, vanishing into the crowd. I climb the stairs, and the music seems to echo behind me, clinging to the rails, vibrating against the tile. Then the door bursts open, and the city strikes like a floodlight. The air above ground is sharp, crisp with winter, and I exhale clouds that vanish into steam, rising from the metal grates. The first blast of wind claws at my face, and for a moment I pull my coat tighter, hunch my shoulders, and remember that winter in New York is a creature all its own. It snaps and stings, but it also wakes every nerve. And then, light. Times Square at Christmas is a cathedral built not of stone, but of screens. Billboards blaze above me, each one alive with holiday animations. Giant red ribbons curling across skyscrapers, snowflakes falling endlessly in digital perfection, Santa leaping across brands. The lights are overwhelming but not harsh. They soften the edges of the night, turning even frost on the pavement into stained glass reflections. The crowds are smaller than usual, but never absent. Times Square is never truly empty. Tonight, instead of teeming chaos, there is a loosened rhythm. Families strolling with cocoa, couples pausing for photos, small groups moving like pilgrims in neon. The absence of crushing mobs lets me hear the city itself, the sounds of cabs idling, of footsteps against wet pavement, of music spilling faintly from open storefronts. The city hums a carol of its own. To my left rises the Port Authority bus terminal, vast and busy even on Christmas night. Buses idle, their engines growling low, doors exhaling gusts of warm air as passengers hurry on board. Some clutch wrapped packages, others only backpacks. A girl waves to her parents through fogging glass, pressing her palm to the window as the bus shudders forward. A man checks his watch, then clutches a ticket as if it were scripture. I watch them move and think. Times Square is a threshold. Here is where you leave, where you arrive, where you pass through carrying the weight of family, of loneliness, of hope. Each bus is a moving story, each departure a prayer whispered into frozen air. The night gathers around me, not quiet, not loud, but balanced in a way only New York can manage. Billboards roar silently overhead. Holiday wreaths hang from lampposts, bows catching frost. A street vendor sells glowing hats, his cart decked with blinking lights, though few stop to buy. The air is alive with contrast, bright light and deep shadow, noise and stillness, wealth and want. And in the middle of it all, I stand, breathing, watching, listening. The saxophone still lingers in my memory, a ghostly harmony threading through the neon. It reminds me that Christmas in New York is not only spectacle, not only commerce, but something human pressed through steel and brass, improvised in a subway car and carried upward into a city that insists on shining even in the coldest night. The lights of Broadway are never truly still, and on Christmas night, they gleam with a peculiar kind of magic. Quieter, yes, but no less dazzling. After the rumble of the subway and the grit of the Port Authority, I drift eastward, my boots crunching against pavement still wet from a day of melting frost. The chill bites sharper here, funneling down the avenues, carrying with it the faint aromas of roasted nuts from a cart, the metallic tang of exhaust, and the sweeter scent of pine from garlands wound around lampposts. Ahead of me rises the New Amsterdam Theater, its marquee burning like a jeweled crown above the street. The golden bulbs shimmer in precise rows, haloing letters that announce the latest Disney production. Animated magic transmuted into flesh and costume. But tonight, the usual crush of ticket holders is absent. Only a handful of families linger near the doors, snapping photos beneath festive wreaths and garlands strung across the facade. The decorations catch the lamplight, sparkling like frost captured in greenery. I stop at the curb and take in the scene. This theater, born in 1903, is a survivor of eras: vaudeville, the roaring 20s, decline, restoration. It has seen velvet gowns and top hats, soldiers in uniform on leave, couples arm in arm, seeking escape in celluloid dreams, and here it stands still, burning bright even in the chill of December 25th. I let my eyes blur, and suddenly I see the ghosts of Christmas Eves past. The year is 1922, perhaps, and the street outside is lined with carriages and early motor cars, their lamps flickering in the snow. Ladies in fur collars and men in dark wool coats crowd at the entrance, laughter bright and warm against the cold. A brass band plays down the block, struggling to be heard over the clamor of bells from the Salvation Army's kettles. Inside, the orchestra tunes, the velvet curtains wait to part, and the world beyond, its wars, its depressions, its griefs, is forgotten, if only for a night. Back in the present, the marquee's bulbs cast a warm circle onto the sidewalk where souvenir vendors still linger, even on Christmas. A man sells glossy programs and snow globes filled with glittering cityscapes. His stall is half closed, his motions slower than usual, but the trinkets gleam all the same. Nearby, a shop window bursts with holiday-themed merchandise, red scarves stamped with Broadway logos, mugs adorned with playbills, keychains twinkling like ornaments. A woman pauses before the display, her mitten pressed to the glass. Inside, a pair of brightly lit mannequins in sequined costumes seem to dance just for her. She lingers, sighs, and then walks on, leaving her reflection trembling in the frost that clings to the glass. The theater door opens briefly, and warmth spills out. Heat, laughter, and the faint sound of a stage manager calling cues. For a moment, I consider stepping inside, but no. My path is outward, through the chill, into the hush of streets less gilded but more haunting. I turn north, my steps echoing off the canyon of buildings until I slip into Schubert Alley, the narrow lane that has been Broadway's backstage corridor for more than a century. Tonight, it is hushed. The alley is paved with stone worn smooth by generations of stagehands, chorus girls, playwrights, and dreamers. The air here is different, colder, sharper, as though the walls themselves keep out the neon glow and hold only shadows. A poster half lit in frost flaps gently against a brick wall, advertising holiday matinees. Its colors have dulled under the winter damp, but the title still gleams faintly, a stubborn defiance against the silence. I stop halfway down the alley, my breath pluming in clouds, and I listen. At first, there is only the faint murmur of traffic on 8th Avenue. Then, if you let your imagination stretch just enough, you can hear them. The ghost applause of long-dead audiences, the cries of stagehands pulling ropes, the rustle of costumes waiting in the wings. Applause lingers here like incense, folded into the bricks, seeping through the mortar. The walls rise close around me, dark with history, damp with frost. I run my hand across the rough surface and think of all the hands that have pressed here before. Actors steadying themselves before stepping on stage, writers pacing with nervous energy, lovers meeting in the shadows between acts. Tonight, the alley is empty, but it feels alive with memory. A small souvenir stand sits near the end, unattended but still lit. Snow globes, keychains, mugs, and magnets glitter under a string of holiday lights that sway in the breeze. A gust of wind rattles them, making the trinkets clink softly, as if the alley itself were applauding in miniature. I stand there, letting the weight of it all settle over me. Broadway at Christmas is not just entertainment. It is ritual, survival, escape. It is the city's promise that no matter how dark the winter, there will always be light, music, and spectacle. It is the assurance that the curtain will rise again, even after the longest night. As I leave Schubert Alley, the neon glow swells again at the end of the block. But in my mind, I carry the silence of that narrow passage, the echo of applause, the resilience of stagecraft. New York is a city that never stops performing, even for itself. At Christmas, the performance is sharper, more intimate, more fragile. The streets glitter, not only with lights, but with memory. The theaters stand not only as entertainment halls, but as shrines. Shrines to human imagination, endurance, and the longing to believe in something larger than ourselves. And as I step back into the wider avenue, I whisper, Broadway is Christmas eternal. Ritual, escape, spectacle, always offering light in darkness. The air tightens as I move further north, pulled by the glow. Times Square is a strange paradox, a place that seems perpetually alive, yet on this Christmas night, its pulse is quieter, muted, but no less radiant. The chill of winter air threads through every seam of my coat, stinging cheeks, numbing fingers, sharpening every sense. The crowds are thinner than the summer throngs I have known here. The press of bodies is gone, leaving more space to breathe. Yet the lights, those endless lights, burn all the brighter for the emptiness. I arrive before the facades of Madame Tussauds Wax Museum and Ripley's Believe It or Not Auditorium, twin monuments to illusion and spectacle. Their facades shimmer with frost and neon, windows fogged slightly from within. Behind the glass, mannequins gleam in seasonal costumes. Waxen celebrities, frozen in their own eternal Christmas pageant. Santa suits, sequined gowns, plastic champagne flutes raised as if ready to toast a holiday that never ends. On most nights, these buildings burst with tourists lining the ropes, clutching prepaid tickets, craning to glimpse their favorite stars in wax. Tonight, the ropes sag idly, dusted with snow. The ticket booths are dim. The great glass doors breathe only faintly, exhaling the scent of cleaning solvent and overheated radiators. At the curb, a costumed character slouches beneath a lamppost. He is dressed as Santa, but his suit is bedraggled, his beard yellowed, his hat slouching like a weary traveler. His hands stay buried in his pockets, and he does not call out to passers-by. There are too few of them to bother. Occasionally, he looks up, as if expecting a child to run forward, but none come. He leans against the post and stares into the middle distance, his neon shadow long and strange on the wet pavement. I pause to watch him. In the summer, these costume characters are relentless, chasing tips with photographs. Tonight, stripped of their audience, they seem more like ghosts than performers. The city has made them illusions twice over. Men, dressed as fantasies, abandoned by reality. I think even the illusions are quieter tonight, glowing softer, less desperate. A bus rolls past, its windows fogged, its passengers staring out at the lights with fatigue rather than wonder. The Santa barely looks up. I wonder if he feels the holiday at all, or if the night is just another shift, another frostbitten vigil in the shadow of spectacle. The neon above the museum doors glows pink and green, pulsing faintly, but even that feels muted compared to what waits ahead. For here, at the center of Times Square, the lights don't merely glow, they consume. I walk onward, boots striking slick pavement, until the canyon of buildings opens wider. There, rising above the square, like a sentinel of spectacle, is one Times Square. The building itself is unremarkable. Its windows sealed decades ago, its floors long empty, yet its skin is alive. Towering LED screens cascade down its face, bathing the square in light brighter than day. On Christmas night, the screens tell a softer story than usual. Animated snowflakes tumble endlessly across an advertisement for Coca-Cola. A cartoon, Santa sleds across a panorama of skyscrapers, waving. His sleigh filled with bright red cans. Candy canes spiral. Champagne corks burst. Fireworks shimmer in rehearsal for the new year. I stop at the base of the tower, craning my neck upward. The ball is there, dark, waiting, a crystalline orb poised to descend in just a few nights. But tonight, it holds still, like a lantern not yet lit. The square below is quieter than I have ever seen it, but the glow turns even silence into ceremony. Here, beneath one Times Square, I feel as though I stand in a cathedral of neon. The LED screens are its stained glass windows, casting shifting colors onto every face that passes. Blues, reds, golds, and whites splash across damp asphalt until the ground itself seems to shimmer like a digital mosaic. The few people wandering the square look less like pedestrians and more like congregants, bundled in coats, hands curled around steaming cocoa cups, faces tipped upward in awe. The soundscape here is peculiar. Without the crush of summer tourists, the usual roar is absent. Instead, the sounds of the city are distinct. A taxi horn honking far off, the whir of a bicycle messenger, the faint hiss of steam rising from a grate. Holiday music drifts from a storefront speaker, a jazz version of Silent Night, tinny, but oddly fitting. And beneath it all, there is a silence that does not belong in Times Square, a silence so rare it feels sacred. I look around me. The square is never truly empty, yet tonight its smaller crowds allow the lights to shine unchallenged, unbroken. The people who are here move slowly, reverently almost, as if aware they have stumbled into a rare version of Times Square, one not devouring, but inviting. They stop to take photographs without being shoved. They gaze up at the screens without being jostled. For a moment, New York itself seems to have inhaled deeply and held its breath, pausing to let the light speak louder than the noise. From here, the glow of nearby attractions tugs at the edges of vision. To the north, I can feel Rockefeller Center calling, its aura of Christmas light bleeding faintly into the square. To the east, Fifth Avenue's displays shimmer like distant constellations. But here, at the heart, the glow is its own universe. Self-contained, relentless, hypnotic. I linger under the darkened ball, the future just days away. Soon, more than 1 million voices will fill this place, roaring countdowns, kissing at midnight, spilling champagne onto the pavement. But tonight, it is Christmas, and the square feels like a chapel between services, waiting for its pews to fill. I think of ritual. The ball drop, like the Christmas tree, like the Broadway show, is more than spectacle. It is repetition, a promise that some things endure. Year after year, the ball descends. Year after year, the lights blaze. Even when the world falters, the ritual remains, glowing steady as faith. Pixels shimmer above me, cascading in endless animation. Snowflakes fall forever across a Coke bottle. Santa waves forever across a skyline. None of it is real, and yet in the glow of this electric-stained glass, I feel the pull of prayer. The city prays in pixels, in advertisements, in images that flicker and vanish, yet return again in brighter color. The people around me do not kneel, but they do gaze upward. They sip their cocoa slowly, huddle close to one another, let the lights wash over their faces like benediction. Even strangers pause together at crosswalks, tilting their heads back, momentarily unified in awe. Perhaps that is the prayer of New York. Not silence, not solemnity, but wonder shared by millions, even for a heartbeat. I step back toward the curb and let my eyes sweep the square. To one side, Ripley's facade gleams with surreal banners promising the unbelievable. To the other, Madame Tussauds glows with frozen celebrities. And straight ahead, one Times Square blazes, a lighthouse in the canyon of streets. Christmas here is not quiet like Plymouth's frost or Gettysburg's prayer. It is not sorrow wrapped in gratitude. It is light, endless light, piercing the cold, piercing the night, insisting on joy. And yet, because the crowds are fewer, because the air is colder, because the silence hums beneath the neon, I can hear something else. Reflection. I whisper to myself, almost a prayer. Even pixels can become prayers. Even lights can be hymns. Even a square of concrete and glass can be a cathedral, if only for one night. I turn northward, ready to step into the square's quiet heart. The lights blaze behind me. The frost glitters at my feet. And the cold Christmas air reminds me I am walking not just through a city, but through its rituals, its illusions, its endless hunger for light. The climb northward brings me to the heart of the square. Duffy Square, the quiet plateau where neon collides with memory. Tonight, frost clings to the steps, and the air seems to pause here, as though even the city knows this ground is different. At the top of the red steps, glowing faintly like embers beneath ice, the crowds are thinner than ever. Families move slowly, careful of the slick glass, stopping for photos that feel less frantic than usual. A child tugs at her father's scarf, pointing at the lights overhead. A couple leans together, framed by the glare of a billboard that spills red and green across their coats. The frenzy of Times Square has softened, and in its place there is something close to reverence. And watching over it all, silent and immovable, stands Father Francis P. Duffy. Father Duffy was not just a priest. He was a chaplain in the Fighting 69th, the legendary Irish regiment that fought with ferocity and sacrifice in World War I. Whether in the frontline trenches or leading attacks, he was there, encouraging soldiers forward, tending to the sick and wounded, administering to the dying, and even arranging burials under fire. He became a figure of fearlessness and compassion, a man who embodied both duty and humanity in the darkest places. His statue here is not accidental. In the very center of Manhattan's most commercial square, where the world comes to gawk at lights and spectacle, New York chose to plant a monument to a man who gave his life to service, sacrifice, and community. On Christmas night, his presence feels sharper. This is, after all, a season that speaks of care for the vulnerable, of light in the dark. Father Duffy lived that gospel not in a church alone, but in the mud and blood of trenches, where comfort and prayer were as vital as rations. He reminds the square, reminds me, that even in the middle of excess and neon glare, devotion and selflessness are the lights that truly endure. Standing before him, I can't help but see the contrast. The billboards around him flash endlessly. Holiday sales, movie trailers, animated snowflakes dancing across corporate logos. They shout of buying and spectacle. Yet here, in bronze, is a man whose legacy is giving rather than taking. On Christmas, this contrast feels almost like a parable. Father Duffy does not compete with the neon. He stands calm beneath it, steady, reminding the city that there is another story beneath the spectacle. One of sacrifice, one of duty, one of care. The square around him reflects that mood. The crowds are fewer tonight, and with the noise lowered, his presence dominates more than the advertisements. A soldier priest who once buried the dead and encouraged the living now keeps vigil in the beating heart of New York. His bronze gaze looks not at the lights, but through them, through to the people who pause here, weary from travel, joyful in reunion, sorrowful in memory. At the foot of the steps sits the TKTS booth, its glass pavilion dark on Christmas night. Normally, its windows reflect the impatience of lines snaking around the block, tourists eager for Broadway's escape. Tonight, those glass panels mirror only the neon above, doubling the square into a kaleidoscope of light. For once, commerce has yielded. The ticket counters are silent. And in that pause, the booth becomes less marketplace and more mirror, reflecting back the square, the statue, the people. When I step closer, I see Father Duffy's bronze silhouette multiplied across its panes, standing sentinel in every reflection. It is as though the booth, too, acknowledges the watchfulness of the man behind me. A passerby pauses briefly, pressing his hand to the glass, then moves on. No words, no tickets, just acknowledgement. In this moment, the booth doesn't sell. It remembers. The chill of winter air cuts deeper here, funneling between the buildings. But instead of scattering people, it draws them closer. A family huddles on the steps, their breath rising in small clouds as they unwrap foil from roasted chestnuts bought at a cart. A child's mittened hand points at a billboard snowflake, tracing its fall. A couple leans against the railing, their faces lit by the glow above, saying little but holding tightly. The sounds of the city are muted enough that each one stands out. The click of a camera shutter, the scrape of boots across icy steps, the rustle of souvenir bags stuffed with holiday-themed merchandise. The absence of crowds amplifies the smallest moments until they feel monumental. And there, in the center of it all, Father Duffy stands. He is Christmas here more than any billboard Santa or blinking reindeer. He is the reminder that courage and compassion are the greatest gifts, that tending the sick, encouraging the living, and burying the dead is as sacred as any hymn sung in a church. Duffy Square and the TKTS booth together form the city's paradoxical heart. Times Square is supposed to be chaos, yet on Christmas night, it beats more slowly, more deeply. The lights still blaze, yes. The vendors still stand with their souvenirs. The billboards still peddle fantasy. But for once, these things are not the whole story. Tonight, the city remembers its human core, embodied in the figure of a man who carried light into trenches darker than neon could ever penetrate. As I turn to leave the square, the frost crunching under my boots, I carry with me not the glare of signs, nor the noise of the city, but the presence of Father Duffy, soldier, priest, caretaker, guardian. A reminder that even in Times Square, especially here, Christmas is not about spectacle, but about service, and that gratitude is owed not to the lights, but to those who kept vigil in the darkness. The walk northward pulls me toward the towers, the giants of glass and brick that mark Times Square's skyline. Christmas night makes them feel different, not louder, not brighter, but sharper. Their light cuts harder through the cold. The NASDAQ tower dominates the block, a monolith of glass where screens ripple with restless motion. Tickers stream endlessly across the facade, numbers rising and falling, fortunes made and unmade in real time. Even on Christmas night, there is no pause. The market's heartbeat does not rest. I stop at the base of the tower, looking up as digital snowflakes tumble across an advertisement, each one superimposed on the glowing green and red of stock tickers. Below, in the recessed doorway of a shuttered storefront, a man curls in a blanket of newspapers. He shifts uneasily, his breath steaming in the air. His shoes are worn through at the toes. The juxtaposition is brutal, wealth measured in billions pulsing overhead, while want shivers on the pavement below. At Christmas, the contrast cuts deeper. Times Square may blaze with promises of prosperity, but its sidewalks testify otherwise. Nearby, a vendor's cart is still open, its bulbs flickering weakly against the glow of the tower. He sells hot pretzels, roasted chestnuts, and trinkets from a crate. Plastic Santas, blinking Rudolph noses, I Love New York ornaments painted in red glitter. Children clutch them tightly as they pass, their parents fishing for coins with gloved hands. Commerce doesn't stop here either, though its scale is measured in coins, not millions. Brightly lit storefronts nearby gleam with displays, mannequins draped in sequined dresses, shelves stacked with holiday-themed souvenirs. Inside, clerks rearrange merchandise to pass the time, their faces tired, their stores half empty. The glass reflects the tickers from NASDAQ, so that wealth itself seems stitched into every window, every sale sign. Looking up again at the tower, I feel the enormity of the city's contradictions pressing down. In this one corner, Christmas is both glitter and ache, merchandise and misery, neon hope and pavement despair. A block north, another tower rises, but this one is different. The Paramount Building, once the crown jewel of Times Square's movie palaces, still carries the dignity of another age. Its great clock glows faintly in the night, crowned by the globe that was once a beacon for millions of moviegoers. In the 1920s and 30s, this was the place where Christmas meant cinema. Families bundled in coats lined the sidewalks, waiting under marquees for the silver screen's magic to sweep them away. Bing Crosby's croon, Fred Astaire's twirl, Shirley Temple's dimpled smile, all played here, giving a city worn by depression and war a reason to gather and believe again. Tonight, the building is quieter, its marquee dim compared to the towers around it. Yet someone has hung a wreath above the doors, its green needles catching the glow of headlights and neon. The old bricks bear the frost, and if you run your hand along them, you can still feel the weight of that golden age, the years when Times Square was less a crossroads of advertising and more a cathedral of stories. I imagine the Paramount at its height, ushers in crisp uniforms, the smell of buttered popcorn drifting into the cold, the lobby lit with chandeliers. Christmas showings would have packed the house, families crowding together, not around televisions in living rooms, but in theaters that promised escape. And when the credits rolled, they would spill out into the square, humming songs from the musical numbers, carrying that glow into the night. The ghosts of those evenings linger. I feel them in the rhythm of the bricks, in the faint glow of the clock. For a moment, I hear the echo of applause mixing with the rustle of coats, the laughter of children with candy sticks in hand. Standing between the NASDAQ Tower and the Paramount Building, the contradictions of Times Square at Christmas are sharper than ever. To one side, the relentless future, screens that never sleep, wealth measured in digits flashing across glass. To the other, memory, the golden age of cinema, when Times Square was less about numbers and more about stories, less about tickers and more about music, escape, and shared wonder. At street level, holiday storefronts gleam, hawking both nostalgia and novelty. Gingerbread tins, sequined dresses, stuffed Santas winking through the frost. Vendors mutter their pitches half-heartedly, their tables stacked with snow globes and Merry Christmas from New York mugs. The few tourists who pause bargain quietly, their voices small under the looming towers. And in the shadows between it all, the city's forgotten huddle in doorways, wrapped in blankets that can't hold back the cold. They are the counterpoint to the towers, reminders that New York's brilliance has always come with shadows. As I move north, the chill deepens, but so does the sense of reflection. Christmas here is not just spectacle, it's a mirror. The NASDAQ screens blaze, but their glow only sharpens the sight of want below. The Paramount clock glows faintly, but its hands measure not only time, but memory. How the city has shifted from cinema to neon, from shared story to shared advertisement. Yet both towers hold their own kind of endurance. NASDAQ's relentlessness testifies to a city that never pauses. The Paramount's wreath, simple against the frost, testifies to memory that refuses to fade, and together they remind me that Times Square is always two things at once, dazzling and desperate, commercial and communal, fragile and indestructible. On Christmas night, that tension is not hidden, it is illuminated. The streets guide me toward the building that remade an entire square. The Times building still cuts its wedge shape into the intersection, smaller now than the glass towers that dwarf it, but no less important for its age. Its very stones carry the memory of a night when New York decided to reinvent itself. Here, in 1907, the first New Year's Eve ball descended from the roof, 700 pounds of iron and wood, hung with 100 incandescent bulbs that blazed against the winter sky. It wasn't fireworks that marked the passage of time, but a slow fall of light, a ritual stitched into the city's DNA. With that, Longacre Square became Times Square, and this crossroads of mud and manure became the crossroads of the world. Now, on this Christmas night, the ball waits high above, quiet, almost reverent. Its crystal shell reflects the blaze of surrounding billboards, storing brilliance for a few days longer. Soon, hundreds of thousands will gather beneath it, chanting the final countdown. But tonight, Christmas claims the silence. Around me, the streets breathe slower, Families stop for photos, children clutching cups of hot cocoa, their mittens clumsy around the lids. Couples stand arm in arm, their heads tilted back toward the dark sphere that will fall. The scene is gentler than I expect. No roaring crowd, no pressing shoulders, just people pausing in the cold, claiming a moment before the rush of another year. The building behind them is more than brick and mortar. It is a threshold, a place where the calendar itself bends to ritual. On this night, though, it feels more like a reminder that cities, like people, can choose to rename themselves, to rewrite their futures. I leave the square, pulled north along 6th Avenue. The avenue stretches like a canyon, lined with glass towers that funnel the wind until it bites my skin raw. The winter air sharpens every step, burning the lungs, frosting the lashes. The city does not let you forget the season. It makes you feel it in every exposed inch of skin. Holiday displays shimmer along the way, drawing the eye even in the cold. Department store windows transform into worlds of their own. Mechanical ballerinas twirl over snowy villages. Toy trains circle endlessly through cotton landscapes. Polar bears grin with painted joy. 5th Avenue is close enough that its glow bleeds across. A reminder that New York tells its stories not only in headlines and neon, but in glass windows filled with dreams. The carols return faintly here, this time from a brass quartet braving the cold outside a darkened lobby, their notes riding the wind like fragile prayers. A man drops $1 into their open case, the sound of coin on velvet almost sacred. The music is not strong enough to drown out the buses, the taxis, the hum of the avenue, but it threads through them, a melody stitched into the roar. Then, without warning, the glow overtakes me. Rockefeller Center explodes into sight, its plaza carved into the stone heart of Midtown. And at its center, the tree. It towers above, like a mountain of evergreen, strung with constellations, a galaxy tethered to the earth. Tens of thousands of bulbs cascade across its branches, shimmering white and gold, each one a star against the black December sky. The crowd is thicker here, tourists with cameras, locals wrapped in scarves, children on shoulders, all looking upward, their faces lit in awe. The skating rink glimmers below, skaters weaving in clumsy arcs, their laughter bubbling like bells across the ice. Angels of wire and light line the promenade, trumpets raised, their metallic wings glowing with fire. Here, the noise of the city fades, not because it is absent, but because the light drowns it out. The tree commands silence the way a cathedral commands prayer. Even the restless city bends its head for this. It is easy to believe the tree was always this way, an icon, a spectacle, a crown of light. But its roots are humbler. In 1931, in the pit of the Great Depression, construction workers building Rockefeller Center pooled their wages and set up a small tree on this very site. They decorated it with cranberries strung on twine, paper garlands folded by hand, tin cans polished into ornaments. It was not abundance they celebrated, but endurance. It was not wealth, but survival. That single act, a tree strung with scraps and gratitude, became a tradition. Each year since, the tree has returned, growing taller, brighter, more elaborate. From the Depression to wartime blackouts, from the gray years of rationing to the glimmering optimism of peace, the tree has stood, and with each passing decade, it gathered more meaning, more weight, more memory. Now it towers 80 feet high, hauled from forests upstate, wired with miles of lights, crowned with a Swarovski star. It is spectacle, yes, but it is also continuity. From tin cans to crystals, the spirit is unchanged. A light raised against the dark, a beacon saying we endured and we are still here. I step closer, the crowd parting slowly until the tree fills my vision. Up close, the scale overwhelms. Each branch bristles with light, every ornament a reflection of faces below. Children gasp, parents murmur, strangers fall quiet. For a moment, New York becomes something rare, unified. The cold gnaws at my cheeks, but I barely feel it now. The blaze of the tree softens the wind, warms the night. Around me, bundled figures hold phones to the sky, their screens glowing like smaller versions of the tree itself. Ice skaters continue their orbit below, blades etching circles of joy into the frozen surface. Above all, the angels trumpet light across the plaza. They are not silent. They speak in gold. And the city listens. The tree is not only decoration, it is memory. Depression workers, wartime families, post-war dreamers, modern revelers, all gather in its branches. Each light is a story, each ornament a testimony. Together, they crown the city, not just with beauty, but with history. I linger longer than I mean to, my breath frosting in the glow. At last, I turn to leave, but slowly, unwilling. The crowd shifts around me, and I step carefully out of the plaza, boots scraping against ice. Halfway up the stairs, I pause. Behind me, the tree towers still, an ocean of light against the black night. It is not diminished by distance. If anything, it grows, its glow spilling down the avenues, echoing in glass windows, scattering across the city like a second skyline. I take one last look. The angels raise their trumpets, the skaters spin, the tree blazes eternal. The city hums on, restless as ever, but in that moment, it feels like it bows. Then I turn again, the cold biting sharper now. I walk northward into the dark, carrying the glow in memory. Behind me, the Rockefeller tree crowns the city, burning not with wealth, but with resilience, with gratitude sharpened by hardship. And as the city folds me back into its rhythm, I let the glow settle, a quiet ember inside. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.